The following edition of Connecticut Valley Views is made possible by Windsor Federal Savings, with offices in Windsor, Bloomfield, Granby, and East Windsor. Neighbors helping neighbors since 1936. Join me, Susan Regan, host of Connecticut Valley Views, the most widely watched interview program on Connecticut Public Access TV. Proof to the people is the byline, insight without bias, generating a 360 perspective. Our mission is to focus on topical subjects with thought-provoking interviews regarding municipal leadership, current affairs, educational and political topics, as well as key destination points in New England.
And here is your host, Susan Regan.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. We are at the offices of AARP in Hartford, Connecticut, and my guests are Claudio Gualtieri, he's the Associate State Director for Advocacy, and Jim O'Brien, Volunteer Chair on our Advocacy Leadership Council. It's a pleasure to be with both of you gentlemen today.
Good to be with you.
Good. We've got some interesting topics to talk about, and I think some very important things, because you have been working with the legislature recently on a number of very important matters for our senior citizens. And we're looking forward to getting in depth into some of those things and sharing, because I know, Jim, you spent a lot of time with the membership, so they're vocal about their concerns.
And concerned, vocal, and very knowledgeable.
Yes. I think that's a good thing to know, because they stay on top of things, that's for sure. They read the newspapers, listen to the TV. They know what they want and what's going on.
Very many do, and we hear from so many.
So you hear their voice, and you're the voice of those people.
We try.
It's great. It's great. All right. Well, with the 2014 legislative session, now it began on February 5th, is that correct?
Well, the funny thing is actually because of the winter we've been having, we actually got snowed out the first day. So the governor's big budget address happened on a Thursday, a rare Thursday budget address this year, the 6th.
Yeah.
But yet opened up in February. This is the short session, so it'll be June 7th wrapping up. And a lot to get done. It's a short session. At the same time, I know that there's meaningful work that we hope to accomplish, and we're confident we get some good things done.
Good. Well, the AARP legislative priorities, there are several of them. We're going to focus on them, and one of them, I think the overall umbrella we can say here is, and I'm going to just say this, is to help improve and maintain the health and economic security for adults 50 and plus. Would you say that that's your mission statement, as it were?
Exactly right. You've captured the two pillars of what we're all about. Healthcare, making sure people have choices to stay at their home and have quality healthcare, and then the financial security and peace of mind, so they have a secure retirement. Those really encompass what our members tell us they want and what we advocate for.
Well, it's not only for them. What it does is that if many of these things are addressed and solved, it's kind of preventative care, if you will, and established, then they can take care of themselves, they can be independent. In turn, their families, their extended families, will be better off because things have been planned for and organized, and there won't be a lot of concern and stress for the people. And further to that, because if they do all of these things, then they won't become a burden to the taxpayers because of certain things that have been done.
And that's exactly correct. When we focus on 50 plus, 65, people in retirement, and their health and their financial security, when things go well, it goes well for entire families.
Exactly. And
as you point out, for communities at large. And so the scope of the benefit is beyond an individual, but is quite broad.
And that's why I think our founding father, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, what she said is, what we do for all. And you've captured that.
Yes.
Because our members are grandparents, they have grandchildren, they have children, and they do care about the spectrum, and they've lived life, and they know kind of what can be possible. And allowing them to have a healthy, secure retirement and stay very active and vibrant is terrific for everyone in the community. So.
Well, it's a vision also, because if the people who are the younger people now and the people who are the children of these people now can envision that retirement or semi-retirement or whatever is actually going to be a happy thing. It's not going to be a, I'm very busy now and we have our young children now and I'm going to college now, and then, oh, and then there's this magic thing where life drops off and you're a burden to people and gosh, I wish I wasn't here anymore. They set an example of how things can really, quality of life can actually improve because people are freed up and have the opportunity to pursue other things.
We're seeing people pursue careers of passion. We call them encore careers.
I love that, encore. That's great. That's
if
great.
you've always wanted to be a cook or a gardener,
Right.
it was never a profession, but it can be maybe an encore career or a hobby that you spend a lot of time with in retirement. In our role, we see it as is connecting our members in the 50 plus to those opportunities. What tools do you need to reimagine your life, to make the second act not just retirement as we used to envision it, living in Florida on a beach, but whatever you want it to be, the things that were possible that you never got around to.
And the challenges are there, so it keeps you really mentally astute. When you're involved and you're responsible for something, or you have certain goals that you're trying to meet, that keeps you mentally alert. And I think what you bring to your own life is a sense of worth. When you have that sense of worth, you know, the mind has an impact on the body has an impact on the mind. If you're mentally happy and healthy and have something to live for, that impacts the body reacts well to that. If you have issues with your body you haven't taken care of, then you're depressed and your mind doesn't want to be bothered. So I mean, it's really a good thing. It's a really good thing you have going. Well, let's talk about some of the...
And just
yes,
to
Jim,
add,
please.
that one of the wonderful things about a life reimagined with AARP is that the organization provides tremendous volunteer experiences, so that I, for example,
Yes.
am not on a beach in Florida, although there's truly nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But this is a volunteer experience for me in a life reimagined after retirement, and I'm joined by many others who see their life enhanced by volunteering, in our case with AARP, or in a multitude of other ways that people volunteer.
I know you have a personal experience. You're responsible for your mother now, and you're going through those responsibilities, and you're able to walk through and talk through. Do you bring that experience when you have your meetings with your members?
No, because our leadership council really focuses on legislation, and while that impacts, that kind of experience may impact how I view some of the legislation and how we talk to legislators.
It's the behind the stage reasons for why you're doing it.
That's
really.
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've been working with the General Assembly. It's really a bipartisan thing. You're not going in there to be a pugnacious group of people causing problems. You're really going in there to solve problems and to actually, in many ways, in doing so, make everybody who's involved in this process look better, because the outcome is going to be a positive statement, and the senior citizens of the community will keep in mind who accomplished this for them.
Right, and AARP talks about issues, and we talk about issues to the people who represent us in the General Assembly, state issues, and we talk about those issues, how they impact on the federal level as well. And it's not aggressive, but it's assertive. We have a point of view, and we ask to be listened to. And in my experience with connecting with folks in the General Assembly, even when they don't agree with you, it's a very respectful process. I talk to those to people at the General Assembly, and there is a nice give and take, and they are interested in our opinions, while they may not agree with all of them. It's a very friendly process I think at the state level. May not be that way at the federal level, but certainly at the state level, Connecticut has something to be very grateful for. We've got a fine legislature, and there may be internecine battles among them, but when they deal with the public, it's my impression that it's
Well, that's really good to
important,
hear.
yeah.
That means that when you raise your voice and raise your hand and stand up to say something, that people are listening. And as long as
people
they're
do
listening.
listen.
And the motto behind all this, we had a volunteer who kind of told me, captured in one quick phrase, what our being is all about. And that is, we don't have permanent enemies, we don't have permanent allies, but we have permanent issues. And it's incredibly liberating, because legislators and our Connecticut legislators know we will come down on one side or the other because it's in the best interest of good policy. It's what our members want, but it's not about partisan politics. So are we involved in politics? Absolutely. What we do is political. It's so important to empower the voices of our members at that Capitol so they hear from real people. But at the same time, we don't have to toe a partisan political line.
Yeah,
So
what I think is important about that, Claudio, is one of the reasons is you don't have a hidden agenda here.
Exactly.
You see, your agenda is to help people. You don't have a party. You have a party called senior citizens, if you will, or 50 plus, or whatever the designation is. It's the broad spectrum of men, women, Caucasian, African American, Chinese, Italian, and we're all going to grow older if you stay, I mean, so it's a common ground here. You couldn't get more common ground.
If you're interested in financial security as you age, if you're interested in health care as you age, then you are interested in our agenda.
And organizationally, that's why we're run by an all-volunteer board, where we have an all-volunteer policy board that comes up with all the policy positions, and every year, every few years, they periodically will re-update on the current trends, and it always connects us to the membership, to the 50-plus community.
See, that's important because I said you didn't have an agenda. If your agenda was anything, it was being successful. AARP is a successful organization. Well, your success is only going to come from making life better for your people. So you really represent the people, I mean, truly.
Thank you.
Truly.
We do.
Yeah. All right, so specifically, let's talk about specifics. Affordable utilities and better consumer protections. Now, we have something called an energy auction. What is that, Claudia?
Yeah, this was a huge issue for our members. Last year, there was a proposal to actually take a large portion of Connecticut ratepayers who chose to remain on standard offer. Standard offer is when you just basically stick with CLMP or UI, your utility provider, to get your power. You don't go shopping competitively for it. Well, the proposal was to auction off these customers to third-party suppliers against the will of the consumers.
Okay.
And we thought that was very problematic for two reasons. One, because the standard offer was our way of providing transparency and providing a benchmark. How do you know you're getting a good price if you can't compare it against something? And two, we thought it was really a rights argument that here we are, consumers had the choice to switch to competitive supplier. They've decided, because they like stability or they like the value they're getting or customer service, where they are, they want to stay with CLMP or UI, and it should be their right to do that. It shouldn't be the government forcing them into the private market that they chose not to join. So there was a very strong reaction from our members and the public. And this proposal came almost instantly under attack, and we helped defeat that proposal in the last days of the session last year. So in the summer months there in the session, we were able to get the auction removed from the budget proposal.
What do you think was the turning point? Was there a particular person who brought, you know, something you said or something? What do you think?
I think the fact that this cut across all parties. You had conservatives and former Governor John Rowland, who has a radio show, being so motivated by it and so against it. And then on the other side, a Democratic Attorney General, George Jepsen, really concerned about a consumer protection side of things, just auctioning off people. So when you have a broad consensus from the public, it just shows how politics really can sometimes work. Sometimes the building is responsive to the people. And I hope that our members and the public get out of that when you raise your voice, and when you do so constructively, you can make an impact. And I think that was probably the biggest turning point.
Yeah, Jim, you have something to add?
I agree. I think it began as the budget makers they saw an opportunity to do this and fill a hole in the budget. I think that they believed that they could raise about $80 million. But the reaction was very quick and across the board, as Claudio says. And to the extent that when we were at the General Assembly, we were over at the Capitol talking to legislators. I remember one taking me aside and asking me to make his representatives stop calling him
Oh,
He
yeah,
said, look,
yeah.
I'm on your side. Can you make them stop?
Yeah, right,
And,
right.
no, we
That was
couldn't
the
make
catalyst
anybody
for him,
stop.
that's it.
Well,
Yeah,
I think he
sure.
was probably on our side of the issue to
Yes,
begin with.
yes.
But people were contacting their legislators. We know that our members were, and asking them to stop this. We didn't think it was a good idea.
Yeah, I would say that probably things that are very finite and that are objective rather than subjective, if you can get it down to dollars and cents, timing, critical to someone's particular situation, if you can benchmark certain points, that's the selling key.
It's very
A lot of
tangible.
rhetoric doesn't necessarily
It's
sell it.
everyone gets that monthly bill
Yeah,
with
yeah.
their energy bill. They
Yeah.
know how much they're paying for it, and they know if they're getting ripped off. And it's something that it's a kitchen table issue.
Yeah.
So it had resonance.
So
And,
you're, yeah.
and it grew.
Yes.
And it changed. And it
Yes.
changed because this year it's part of our legislative concern, because in the process of listening to people talk about their experience with the energy auction and their opposition to it, we began to find out a lot about how people were interacting with their electric generation providers. And you have to understand that our electric bills are split into two. CLMP
Right,
or United
services.
Illuminating
Yep.
brings the electricity to your home. They pay for the wires, you pay for that. But it's optional who you buy, who generates your
Who
electricity.
services the,
And some of the generators, how they market their products are not very forthright in
I was going to say,
their,
there are some
in
scams
their
out
pricing,
there too, yeah.
and their scams. Many of them target older residents, go after them, show up in what we hear is they go to some places where seniors live after the staff goes home
Oh, my.
and knock on doors
Oh, my.
to sign people up. And I mean, that does happen, but in general, you have to be much more careful about how
Yes.
you're buying your electricity.
Yes.
And we think that the state should take a look at some broader consumer supported legislation
Yeah.
that helps us, not just older people, but everybody buy
And
their
that's where
electricity.
the attorney comes in.
And I think
He's the gatekeeper on some of this stuff,
Right.
obviously.
It's smart to be able to buy the lowest cost electricity, but you want a rate that lasts more than 30 days.
Sure,
Or
exactly.
That
You
doesn't
want a
change
fixed, you want a fixed rate,
1 month, 2
Right.
months, 3 months in.
right.
We had a conversation early in the session with a legislative leader, and I'm not going to say who had a heck of a time being able to change his electric provider when he found out that the rate had gone up more than he anticipated. And we don't think anybody should experience that.
Yes.
It should be as above board as possible, and we're working with the General Assembly to try and secure that.
Good, well, this also covers things too, like the internet and other things. Now, there are also some gaps for individuals shopping for this electric supplier. And so I think that sorting it out for people, giving them a clear picture of what the true options are, not the scam situations, making sure at the back end that you're watching, the gatekeepers are watching, that the Attorney General's watching, and you people are doing it. And I think that's really, because you've got other technology too, with the internet and other things. And so when these things start to change, you've got a whole new perspective to deal with. But what you're saying is we're here, we're watching it, we're keeping our eye on you, as it were. All right, now, you're also helping people to stay in their homes, is that correct? You know,
Absolutely.
staying in their homes, we know what that means, but there's more to it than that.
That's one of the issues we hear all time and time again from our members is that, look, I may need a little help with chores around the house. I may
Right.
need some help preparing meals or getting dressed or medication, medical
Right.
tasks.
Right.
But doesn't mean I want to give up my autonomy, my independence, and the things I love. I still want to be involved in the Irish American Club
Right.
or giving, going to church on Sunday. And the happy medium there is getting services that the person wants in their own setting, in their own home. And we're doing a lot by way of this. There's one program in particular. It's actually a travesty. It started as a small pilot program, and that's for our members who are between the ages of 50 to 65. and they don't qualify for the elder services, there's a program to provide home and community-based supports for those people who have physical disabilities in their own home. That program started as a 50-person pilot. It has a wait list now of over 103 people.
Holy smokes.
3 years on average from when you apply to get on the program to actually getting enrolled and getting services. And that's just not acceptable.
And that's going to grow. That is no
Exactly.
question.
We have a 25% anticipated increase in long-term care users over the next 20 years. So the need's going to be there, and we're working now to expand that pilot so that it reaches 100 people. That'll double the program. Unfortunately, still leaves some of a wait list on, but we'll keep working on it, and that'll be a significant improvement for those people waiting for care.
Well, I think a lot of people are covered by long-term care, or I won't say a lot of people. I would say that that program has probably been around for the past 18, 20 years now, that option. But who's getting caught in the middle here are families who are having to provide their own personal care for their own loved ones and shortchanging their own lives, financially, work-wise, time with their own family and so forth, and they're not getting compensated.
Exactly. We see the Medicaid line item because it's a dollar amount in a budget. So we all know that, and that
Right.
gets covered. What doesn't get covered is the fact that the backbone of the whole system still remains unpaid family caregivers. An adult child taking care of their parent, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, stepping up, buying groceries, checking in on them. All that informal support is really what makes the system work, and we want to encourage that. At the same time, we realize that that comes at a cost. It sometimes comes at great cost to the caregivers who sometimes don't have a chance themselves to make sure that they're getting to the doctor and keeping well, that they're doing exercise and they're eating properly and getting a break.
There are the unintended results of that, where all of that stress of taking care of that loved one makes them ill and then shortchanges them at the
Exactly.
other end.
And we're working on things like legal protections for caregivers. We have a family medical leave task force looking into when someone has to take leave to caregive.
Excellent. So that's
what
working
type
with
of
the employers
replacement-
then.
Exactly.
You're looking at the, okay, great.
Creating some sort of a mechanism where there could be some form of payment, because family medical leave is great, but all it does is protect the job. It doesn't protect the loss of income during that period. Certain legal protections, so caregivers can't just be fired for having to take on these new responsibilities. And just breaks. There's an Alzheimer's respite care program that's terrific for those caregiving with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. But the program is often underfunded or just barely making it by, and it's only a little reprieve.
So there is actually a parachute here that we're looking at, a second parachute, if you will.
Strengthening that
Yes.
safety net for caregivers.
Now let's look at improving healthcare and quality. We're talking about you're working in Connect to improve the healthcare quality, to strengthen consumer protections, and tell us a little bit more about that, Claudio.
Well, access to care is a big issue now. We know that thanks to the Access Health Connecticut, our new exchange here in Connecticut,
Kevin
we have-
Cunahan's done a great job.
Exactly. We have about 100,000 new people who are on the insurance rolls, who are looking to get primary care, and the need's going to only grow as our population ages and needs more chronic conditions to be treated. And one of the ways that other states have successfully kept up with demand is by allowing advanced practice registered nurses, APRNs, to practice to the full extent of their training and expertise. Unfortunately, Connecticut's one of those states that still has some pretty outdated and restrictive laws that require a nurse, an APRN, to get permission and formal collaboration with a doctor.
So it's really slowing down
Before
the
they
process.
can get, exactly. And this is a big problem for some of our urban centers and some of the more rural parts of our
Right.
state in eastern Connecticut and in western Connecticut near the New York border. The challenge is going to be, how do we make sure to free up APRNs so that they can provide the care they want to do what they do best, treat people that have illnesses and help them get well and stay well.
And utilize the skill set they have.
When other states have looked into expanding the scope of practice and freeing up their nurses to provide primary care, they could have saved billions of dollars.
Well, they're freeing up the nurses, which frees up the primary care physicians and perhaps frees up some specialists so that everybody is getting a little bit more of the areas where they have the expertise, and the more critical issues move on with the doctor and the specialist.
And it's important to realize we do like and support collaboration, and we think that nurses and primary care physicians and social service supporters should all be collaborating for the well-being of the patient. But how we do so is from a area of mutual respect, not from the nurses having to get sort of a permission slip and to be tethered to these rules under which they're supervised by a physician, but instead where their opinion is valued.
Sure. Well, I think sometimes that comes into the risk thing where people are concerned, you know, did the right person make the right decision? Is there a certain point at which it should move beyond from nurse to the doctor and so forth? So perhaps maybe in more contemporizing the situation, perhaps more can get done, and certainly more efficiently. It's a very important aspect of that. Now, Jim, there's a point you wanted to make, and it's important for us to fit this in. We could talk for an hour about everything. We could talk for 2 hours about all these things. It's great. But Jim, universal power of attorney.
Oh, yes. If you're caring for an aging parent, and even to change electric service, you need either the parent to make the call. Sometimes the parent's not able to make the call, or understanding what the call is about. An alternative is to have power of attorney, and that's part of the, I think, part of the as we age planning process that should be in place. We've done it with my mom has done it. She's done a good job. My wife and I have put those things into place, and. But AARP is focused also on what's called the Uniform Power of Attorney Act, that now 13, 14 states all share, have passed. Connecticut, Massachusetts, and a couple of other states.
So it's really streamlining the ability of a specific person to handle all of the issues related to the person they're caring for.
It would put in some standards into place that if you're going to have power of attorney, it has to cover these things, and it may cover everything. And providers, businesses would have to under the state law would be subject to them, so that they couldn't say, well, we're not going to recognize power of attorney.
So they're going to have to fall.
And I don't think that happens a great deal here, but it does standardize and put into place some reasonable rules and regulations about power of attorney.
And that's very important. Well, there are so many subjects we could talk about. You guys have contributed so much, both from, I think, the membership position, from the legislative situation, and I think that one of the quick things I wanted to just mention is you have an important TV ad that's out there. You don't know AARP. I think AARP is what you normally do not like to refer to it, but it does say AARP and it does say AARP, so both designations are fine in your book now. But it does say you can have a career afterwards, after you retire, when you're going into the enhanced life. It's a great ad. I mean, it's terrific. It shows a very youthful lady, and she's doing her, enjoying life and doing things. And I think it's very important. But one other quick thing: voter registration. You've also put some effort towards that too, as well.
Absolutely. Our members are. They vote, they're engaged, they love their communities, they want to be active, and in any given election in Connecticut, 40% of the electorate is AARP members. That's a huge voting block, and we feel a responsibility to make sure that our members have information on where candidates stand in an objective fashion. We don't do ratings or scorecards.
Right.
Instead, we do side by side. We talk about policies, and we allow them to make a decision comparing candidate A with candidate B, and they can decide who better aligns with their values and their needs and their
well, great job, gentlemen. We're
you.
delighted. We're delighted. It was a pleasure to have a
Thank you.
conversation with you. I do want to give your website. It's www.states.aarp.org/CT. Do I have it right?
Exactly.
Okay. And you can see us on Facebook, and you can see all of our programs on our website at www.ctvalleyviews.com. This is Susan Regan. Thank you for joining me, bringing proof to the people. Our thanks to Windsor Federal Savings for making this program possible. Neighbors helping neighbors since 1936.